Okay, I'm waiting on notification. Okay, boom. Here we go. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning into a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have an amazing guest with us who's going to give us some information as well as inspiration. She's a recurring panelist. Her name is Bianca Alexis, and she just does a great job in the community and her work field. And she's someone who inspires me on a day-to-day basis. She's an entrepreneur. She does a lot of great things, and I look forward to this. Oh, Ilyasa says peace, everyone. Oh, Ilya, boy, people love coming on the show. Once they a guest, now they come back and act like they watch the show. She don't watch. She's trying to come like she watches. Okay, so
I feel like this is my third time on, so I have dubbed myself like an honorary co-host. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get that title, but I feel it. I'm claiming it today.
Absolutely. And as we just saying, what's going on there? Thank you, Asmesia, for everybody for watching. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this podcast tonight is because someone who grew up in religion, and been around religion, I know that especially in the Black community, out of all our communities, but especially in the Black community, we try to scare people away from sex using God and things that maybe aren't necessarily practical. Yeah. And I was telling you that me and Bianca went to the same high school, and I said my health teacher, my sophomore year in high school, did more for me than all of like my parents saying I was gonna go to hell if I, did some freaky stuff or something. So information matters because that health class changed my life. And every time I just think that we need a practical solution to dealing with AIDS and STDs in a real sense, as well as, the spiritual thing too, but in a practical way, we needed to address it. So I'm looking forward to, Mimi says, hey y'all, hey Mimi, and then Ilyas is laughing. So I want you to help us out. First of all, what are the, is it a big deal or is it not a big deal as far as STDs in the Black community?
So let me back up and say, I have a little echo. Okay. Let me back up and say, imagine if everybody had that same high school health experience, right? Like a lot of times we talk about taking sex ed out of schools, but think about how that really can change your life or inform you. So just imagine all of the folks and the young people now who do not have that opportunity to learn technical terms and literally the ins and outs of sexual health. And so that really creates a lasting framework on how we think about sex, because if we're not having those conversations in our home for a variety of reasons, one being religion, and you're not getting that information in a school setting, you can literally be walking around blind, setting yourself up, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, or you're just listening to what your friends tell you. Is it a big deal? Yes. Facts. Point blank, period. I have been working in HIV now, and going forward, I'm going to use the term HIV, and I'll explain why. But so I've been working in public health and HIV for almost 20 years. I know, and I'm only 22. But for almost 20 years, and I have seen so much, right? Like so much in terms of progress. So one of the things I think about when we talk about high school is, so our junior year in high school, a really close friend of my family, my mother's really, passed away from complications of AIDS, and my mother and I were with him in the hospital like his last few days, and that literally changed my trajectory. That was part of the reason I graduated high school our junior year, because I knew that there was something more, something bigger. I don't know if it was a calling, but I just knew that having witnessed and been a part of somebody's transition that was very close to me changed my perspective on things, changed my perspective on health. And so, and prior to that though, late 90s, a lot of my mother's friends were dying from complications of AIDS. So I was seeing it, or we knew people, or really up close and personal. So when I got to DC, And even in high school, shout out to Mr. Edie, but I was on the AIDS Awareness Council. And kudos for Nicksville North for being that progressive.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. But even then in high school, I was learning, right, and understanding. And so when I got to DC and got connected working with an organization, us helping us, and I was doing outreach and I was talking to people about safer sex practices. I was passing out condoms in the clubs, in public sex areas, in bathhouses, on the quote unquote strolls. I was out there in the midst and learning about people and their sexual behaviors. Um, and it was impactful in a way that, um, one, I was surprised. You give somebody a condom, they will start telling you all of their business. Sometimes I didn't know if I really wanted to know because this was young Bianca, and I was like, well, okay, please tell me all of the things. Tell me what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and let's talk about how we can be doing it safer, right? So so I was doing that, and I was doing outreach, and then I transitioned to doing HIV testing and counseling a few years after that. And there's nothing like telling somebody that they have HIV. You literally sit there and you're with someone in a very pivotal moment in their life. They may come in for a routine test, and 20 minutes later, they're leaving with a diagnosis that they may or may not understand. And I was doing that for a long time, telling a lot of people, clients. My youngest client was 16, and then also helping him to navigate health systems. I will never forget taking him to Children's Hospital for the first time to get connected with case management and services and talking about medication. Um, and so, or even older people. Like I also had some clients who were my elders who had never been tested before, testing for the first time, and I am the one to deliver that. Heavy. It does a lot on it takes an emotional toll. And then from there I moved into case management because I was like, okay, I want to be on the other side. Once you have found out your status, we've cried, we've fussed, we've figured it out. Now let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about accessing services. Let's talk about what needs to be done to keep you healthy, to live a full life, because people with HIV are living very full, long lives. It is not um, it is not the death sentence of the 90s, the late 80s. It's just not. Medication and treatment has come so far. And so I want people to understand that, to understand the importance of getting tested, of knowing your status, the importance of if you are HIV positive, getting and staying on treatment, the importance of being able to have conversations safely with your partners about HIV status. So so that's kind of all one thing in itself. But is it still a big deal? Yes, because our numbers are. Let me be very specific. HIV in the Black community is still very much a problem. It is an epidemic. Um, to narrow it down even further, HIV in the Black community in the South is an issue. And so that's where we see disproportionately the numbers on the rise. Florida, Georgia, Louisiana. So the work I do now is on the national level. So I work directly with state health department HIV programs. So I get a very bird's eye view of what HIV looks like across the country, what is working in terms of prevention messages, what is working in terms of getting folks into care. But I'm also seeing the trends, the increases of HIV amongst heterosexual Black women, or the increase in HIV right now among young Black men who have sex with men. So so although we know all of the ways to prevent, we know about condoms, we know about abstinence, we know about mutual monogamy, we know about these things. So what are the barriers, right? Like, let's talk about the stigma. Let's talk about the role that religion, and as we talk about the South especially, plays in people either um, not accessing testing, not accessing care, due to fear of being found out by family, due to the perceived notion that God did this to them anyway. Because all of that is keeping it that stigma and denial and fear is what causes the HIV rates to increase. What causes folks to die from complications of AIDS when they don't have to. People don't, and that's the one thing that I can't stress enough. We have come so far in terms of. I remember when we were hearing about HIV cocktails, antiretroviral cocktails, where folks were taking multiple pills a day. I remember when my godfather, who was HIV positive, he passed away 3 years ago now due to complications. But I remember when he was first diagnosed in the early 90s, hearing about 20, 30 pills a day, you know, and how it was making him sick and the cost. But now there are single tablet regimens, 1 pill a day. Like that changes things. And there's ways to access treatment. There are other ways to prevent using medications, PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which we're not talking enough about still in the Black community, which is essentially a medication that somebody who is HIV negative can take once a day to prevent HIV. It's 99% effective. 99%, that's huge. That's the closest thing we're going to get to vaccine and or cure, I think. Joshua, your hand is up.
Yes, ma'am. So when you say PrEP, okay, so what is that? I never heard that term. I never heard of PrEP. What's PrEP? Break PrEP down.
And that's why we're talking. Okay, so so PrEP stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. It is a medication. Often, I don't know if I want to plug drugs, but I will. Truvada, which is as a medication created by Gilead Sciences, and there's other medications as well, where a person who is HIV negative but could be, believe that they could be at risk for HIV, can take the pill once a day. When it first really was big, people were kind of comparing it to birth control. So you take birth control to prevent pregnancy, you can take PrEP to prevent the transmission of HIV. There have been numerous studies. The studies are endless, but PrEP has been around for quite some time now, and it really is 99% effective. We see PrEP, we're definitely encouraging and talking to it more amongst men who have sex with men because their rates of transmission are higher. We talk a lot about PrEP specifically with Black men who have sex with men because, again, modes of transmission is higher. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So hold on, I just want to say thank you for your giving us this information. Thank you, Mimi. Mimi saying thank you for sharing this insight with us and educating us, Bianca. Thank you, Mimi, for always showing love and being in the comments of the People's Podcast. Yeah. Here's a question. So, Law and Order is one of my favorite television series. They did an episode with the guy who my sisters hated growing up because he was the one who burned down. Angela Bassett burned down his car in Waiting to Excel.
Uh-huh.
And it was about being on the down low. And how it was on SVU, and it was how the Black men were infecting so many Black women because they were not talking about that, and they were bringing the AIDS home to the women. How is that still a thing, or is that just on TV, or is that is that a thing where men are putting women at risk because of the down low lifestyle, or is that a thing?
So I think so. One thing I'm going to say, correction, because words mean things. HIV. Not AIDS. Two different things. When I first started, especially in DC, there was a lot of conversation about the down low. So this was 20 years ago when the book came out. I can't think of the author's name, but he was on Oprah and kind of pulled back this curtain. But I don't like the idea of placing blame. I appreciate though having conversations, especially in the Black community, about why we are not talking openly and honestly about our sexuality, about what we like, what we don't like, who we like to have sex with, and who we don't. Can you imagine if there wasn't the stigma or the homophobia that existed? If Black men were able to and comfortable um, talking to their partners, their wives about this is actually what I like more than this, or along with this, that 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 changes things, right? We also know that sometimes, also thinking about why folks are engaging in sexual behaviors without protection, because that's what it is too. And there's a lot that it's not as easy as go put this condom on. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? Because the act of putting on a condom or using a dental dam or anything like that, it acknowledges that you are about to have sex. So if you are already feeling like what I'm doing is wrong and shameful and I shouldn't, just getting into that act acknowledges acknowledges what you're about to do. So I've also heard from folks who say, I don't use condoms because I don't like the way they feel. I just want to get in it and done. I don't want to think about the fact that I am about to engage in this. For some folks, not all. And so I think there's a lot around the idea of the quote unquote down low, and some folks still believe that the rates among Black women increase in some areas like the South, decrease in some areas like the West Coast. And it is through heterosexual sex, and mostly through heterosexual sex. And it's not always in the case that their partner, their male partner, was sleeping with another man. That's just not necessarily true.
Okay.
We can also have conversations about Black men that are transmitting or becoming HIV positive in jails and prisons. That's something that we're not talking about enough. And that condoms are contraband. So it's not, they're not talking about having safer sex in prisons or in jails.
Yes. So you're saying that people who may be engaged in sex in prison aren't using condoms?
I don't know very many, if any, jails or prisons, and anybody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, that are giving out condoms or making condoms accessible in jails or prisons. I haven't seen, I haven't heard. And when I used to work at a women's shelter, I used to do intakes for women coming into our recovery program. I used to do them in the jails in DC. And so I had never heard of a woman saying, "Oh yeah, you can get condoms here." I've never heard. It's sometimes it's hard to get medication for HIV in jails. Some correctional some facilities are not even doing testing. So not testing coming in and not testing coming out.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Now, does HIV have a face?
No.
So is it do pretty people get it, or does everybody get it? Because is it a weight thing? I want to be, because these what people want, because some people think that if somebody got HIV, they can't be attractive, or they have to be this size or this size or this. You're saying anybody can have it?
Anyone. Point blank period. Full stop. There's no, again, I remember, and even I remember seeing them in high school, but there used to be almost like those scared straight commercials and posters of people who had AIDS and who had the wasting syndrome, and they were thin and they were covered in lesions, and they were all of this, like this is the face of AIDS. It's not. It's the reality is that it isn't. And again, because there is medication, because there is treatment that is prolonging life, literally life-saving treatment, that the face of it doesn't exist anymore. And there is no way to tell.
Mm.
Right. The only thing you can do is to get tested. So another thing that I talk about a lot and always have is HIV testing with your partner. Like I think one of the things that we know is people are having sex, and let me be clear. I want folks to have sex. I want them to have a lot of sex. I want them to have good sex. I want them to have whatever. I don't yuck anybody's yum ever. I want them to have consensual sex. I want them to have sex with consenting adults, right? And so I understand when folks are dating or in relationships or not, and you get to a point where what I've seen is like you and this person are new and you're using condoms all of the time because it's new, and then we get comfortable, right? We get a little bit comfortable,
yeah,
and maybe 1 or 2 times it's not, and then 3 or 4 times and it's and that box of Trojans is now dusty. However, which is fine if you are or have been tested and are testing with your partner. One of the things we want to encourage is for folks to talk to each other, to say, hey, have you ever been tested for HIV? And hopefully both parties being honest. If not, it's, hey, you want to go get tested together? I can't tell you how many times I have tested couples. So, so true stories, with no names. I'll never forget a couple coming in to get tested, and they can come in together, but we don't do usually any type of pre-counseling or conversations together. Like everything is separate still. And so you might think, oh, I'm getting tested with my monogamous partner. But when they come into that counseling session and they're telling me, and I ask, how many partners have you had in the past 3 months? And they're like, they can't hear me, right? And this is stays right here. Okay. So another reason, so they might say 1, and then your partner might say 4. But just the act of, we're about to get this test together, we're going to get these results together, is important for HIV, for STDs, period. And also understanding, like, wanting to do it safely. These conversations are not easy. And so if you're in a relationship where you don't feel safe having those conversations, there are some folks that I've talked to that are like, I can never talk to my boyfriend about that because he's going to think that I'm cheating, or they're going to think that, why do you want to start using condoms now? We weren't before. Like there's all of those, yeah. But when you know better, you do better. But it's so much bigger than that. So it's about having these conversations in a way that's safe. It's about testing together and testing regularly. It's about being as open and honest about what you like sexually, your attraction, and hopefully you're talking to somebody who isn't going to judge you or demean you to the point where then you start doing other things in secret. And that's when those cycles and things happen, when people feel like they cannot talk with their partners, cannot talk with their families. When I think about the number of young folks that I know that have contracted HIV, there's a lot of family dynamics at play. And so what are we telling our kids or not telling them? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. How can we, the family dynamic, how can we help resolve that?
Honesty, asking yourself, what does unconditional love really look like?
Yeah.
Like that is real. So I know I am raising two super dope black kids. Love 'em. I also know that the world, this country, is never going to love them as much as I do. So it is important that they know that mommy, that daddy loves them no matter what, so that they feel safe enough if that is where our paths lead to say, if my son comes home and says, um, "Mommy, I'm gay," word, let me meet that boyfriend then. Excellent, because I love you and I don't want you to do things in secret that might harm you.
Mm.
I want you to be able to, if my daughter comes home and tells me the same, like I am your mother. I love you no matter what. And
Mm.
so, but I've also, I've seen LGBTQ youth who are homeless, who are um, maybe having sex in exchange for money because of those family dynamics of being put out, or being ostracized, or whatever religion tells them that they're going to hell. So, all of that. Um, that I, 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 I say, man, I could not, because my love for my children is just too big. And so, and because I'm in this work, because I know what it could look like when people do not have love, support, family, do not have a feeling of self worth, because the world is telling them that they're not good enough, or the world is telling them that they're wrong. So I the family is just it's so huge. And I know folks who, if my child ever came home and he told me he's gay, I would be, the world is going to tell him that home should be your children's safe space,
Mm.
literally. So why are we, I don't want to say throwing them out to the wolves, but at the same time, you know, putting them in harm in a way that they don't have to? Why are we not giving them not only the love but the tools to, and talking about, talking to our children about sex in a way that's age appropriate? I'm not going to be talking to my son about anal sex. He's 8.
Mm. Mm.
but,
Mm.
but in a way, across the spectrum that is appropriate, that makes sense for your child's age. Um, but hands down, they're always going to know that I want them to know that they can talk to me. They can talk to their father. We picked, I believe, excellent godparents, because if comes a time, because our kids are not, one day they're gonna be teenagers, and I know my daughter's gonna be like, I am not gonna be you. But I hope that she will seek wise counsel from another adult, preferably her godparents. Like those roles are real. I remember talking to my godfather, now my ancestor, may he rest, but I remember talking to him about sex. Not that I couldn't to my mom, but I don't know. I needed an adult. I needed wisdom, and I'm glad I got that. And so again, if we are a village, if we are raising our children as such, if we are doing whatever we can to protect them, then we need to be able to provide the space for them to talk about who they are, instead of us trying to tell them who they should be, and who they are. So that right there is safer sex. Carry on. Yes,
Excellent,
sir.
excellent. Naima says, my sister Naima says that's so important. As Misha, she works in the same field that you do as well, and she says that's real, factual. Thank you, Asmesia, for watching. This is her first time watching as well, but thank you,
Yeah.
Asmesia. And okay, so what I was gonna say is having someone safe to talk about sex with. Definitely didn't do that growing up. Even though my mom's made it an open door policy that I could, just not gonna do it. And the reason I do shows like this is because all of the idiotic advice I got from people who meant well.
Mm.
They ain't tell me how to put no condom on though.
Mm.
At one time, they taught me how to get it. They taught me how to maintain and please and do all of that. But it wasn't no condom classes. It wasn't no safe. I didn't know how you could get things or couldn't get things from them. Now from that health class in Naperville North, you know, in the HS, you know what I'm saying? It taught me, but I'm just saying, I was a sophomore in high school. Puberty hit 3 years, 4 years before that. Yep. So let's deal with the condom situation.
Yeah.
What does it prevent and what does it not prevent?
So condoms. So let's also condoms should only be latex or a synthetic material like a polyurethane. Some folks are allergic to latex, so polyurethane. There are options. That's the other thing that people don't know too. I used to hear that, oh, I'm allergic to latex, I can't use no condom. But there are options. And the option is never an animal skin. It is never a sheep skin, never a lamb skin, never. We ain't no. So
okay.
So condoms are a barrier, going to prevent the passing of semen, pre-com, vaginal fluids, right? So it's a barrier. It is not necessarily going to prevent anything that's like skin to skin, so like herpes. So if somebody is having a herpes outbreak, or they have a sore, not on the shaft of the penis, but above, and so the condom isn't going up that high. There's no protection over that part of the body, and it is rubbing up against somebody else, then you can transmit herpes that way, because herpes is more skin to skin. And so, but it is going to prevent gonorrhea. It is going to prevent chlamydia. It's going to prevent syphilis. Is going to prevent HIV. Condoms. Also, we need to remember that there are a lot of STDs that you can get orally as well, and people don't want to. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes. You can all transmit orally. And so I remember somebody saying, I don't want to perform oral sex on my man with a condom on. I'm not sucking on a rubber band. Okay. And that's fine. And that's the thing. Have you and your partner been tested? Have you and your partner ruled out, all of the STDs to be able to take it to that level to say we're not going to use any barriers because we have both been tested for, gotten the battery of tests for STDs, HIV, etc. If we're ruling all of that out, if neither one of you have any STDs and you're engaging in condomless sex, orally, vaginally, anally, whatever, then that's fine. But if you don't know your partner, if you don't know, and that's the thing too, we are in a swipe left, swipe right generation. Let's get this in real quick. Let's go about our business, and that is fine too. Again, no one's young, no one. But even then, it's even more important then, because we're not going to, be on an afternoon date and say, let's go get tested together. That's not going to happen. So all the more reason in those situations, we want to encourage folks to use forms of protection, to use condoms, to use dental dams. Let me talk about dental dams real quick.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about, again, barriers, right? So do you remember in, oh God, what movie was it? I think it was Booty Call, when Tommy Davidson came out with that saran wrap and then he was wrapping the saran wrap? I don't know. Anyway, so once upon a time, folks would say, to use saran wrap as a barrier. So now they have dental dams. Well, they've had them for a long time, but it's almost like an 8x10 sheet of latex. It's like a latex piece of paper that you can put or should put over anywhere where you're putting your mouth. So if you're about to perform oral sex on a woman, you would put down, or you would encourage her to put down a dental dam. Again, to blocking transmission between your mouth, her vagina, right? Or analingus. So if you are going to perform a little of that anal eating, dental dam to form a barrier. That's what all of this is. You want to keep your fluids in and their fluids out.
Mm.
So whether it's condoms, whether it's dental dams, some folks, if you don't have a dental dam, because I don't know if I've ever walked into like a Walgreens or a CVS and seen a dental dam on the shelves. I always see them in like health department settings or community-based organizations where we would like specifically order those kind of things. They come in flavors: cherry, vanilla, strawberry. That way, it's delightful. But your safer sex practices can be and should be fun. Like it should never be, oh my God, I gotta put this condom on. It should be, oh, not only am I gonna put on this condom, but I'm gonna use this good lubricant, this little silicone based situation, and make it nice and slick. Another thing, I am a huge proponent of lube, and we do not talk. Let me tell you a story. Bianca, look, I've been in this work a long time, and I worked in community a long time. My role now is not as forward facing, so it's very different. But I used to do a lot of outreach in barbershops and beauty salons. Loved it. So I would be the one to go into barbershops and a few things. One, train the barbers to talk to their clients about HIV, about STDs. Because we know a lot of sex, like conversations around sex, happen in barbershops, right? Or in beauty salons, period. It's where Black folks go to congregate. It is church, therapy, and sex ed. So we wanted to make sure that the barbers and stylists had the right information. And also in doing that, I would also bring in bowls of condoms, lubricants, all of the safer sex things that they need so that folks could get what they need when they're coming and going. So many men would tell me, Black men at that, would say, oh, I don't need lubricant because I always get her wet. No, you don't, friend. One. And there's a lot behind that. And so, but I would say, yeah, okay, that's fine. However, lubricant is great because there could be a variety of reasons for vaginal dryness. Not necessarily that the woman isn't pleasing, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, but birth control can cause vaginal dryness. Menopause can cause things to be drier. Lack of stimulation. Antihistamines, so some Benadryls and allergy medicines, those types of things as well. So you want to use lubricant, either a water-based or silicone-based lubricant, because you want those pink parts, penis inside the vagina, you want those to stay lubricated, because if things are dry, they're more likely for bruising, for cuts, for tears, for openings that STDs love. They are looking for that opening. And so lubricant is fun. There's the kind that warms and cools and tingles. And so just because he may think.
Why come she can't think? How come she can't think it? Why got me he can't think it?
She can think it too. She can think, oh yeah, it's always slick. Okay, sis. So maybe it's not. And that's okay. And that's okay too. So I would say to them, okay, yeah, that's fine and great, but let's make it slicker. Because again, you want to make sure that things are literally running smoothly. And also there is that misconception that lubricant is only for anal sex, and that's not true. Do you want to use lubricant for anal sex? Yes, because again, the inside of the anus is more likely to tear because it's very thin skin. So you want to make sure that it's very lubricated as well. But same goes for the inside of the vagina. You want to make sure that it's well lubricated because there is the possibility for tearing. So yeah, lube. It's it's what's for dinner.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, you killed my spirit with any girl I was gonna text or call tonight. Nobody's gonna call or text tonight for sure. All right, as Nisha is saying, can you tell people why latex and poly are the only healthy preventative options?
So specifically because again, once upon a time you would hear about sheepskin and lamb skin um and now that I think about it, I don't know when's the last time I heard about a sheepskin or lambskin condom. I feel like that was like from my mother's era, but neither here nor there. Just like human skin, animal skin has pores, so tiny holes
Mm,
essentially. And so
mm,
if the objective is to keep um, um, semen or ejaculation, the fluids inside, you wouldn't want to use a condom that essentially has holes in it, even though they're very tiny, they're microscopic. So you never polyurethane and latex are the way to go. The good thing about polyurethane condoms too is that polyurethane is stronger, so less likely to tear than latex. It also has kind of a warming effect to it, so that's kind of nice. Um, female condoms. Female condoms are only, to my knowledge, I have never seen a brand of a female condom that is latex. I believe they're only polyurethane,
mm.
and that's a very strong condom. We don't talk enough about the female condom. It is very it's a little bit more expensive. Polyurethane itself, those type of condoms are more expensive, but female condoms are great because you can put in. I used to tell, this is when I used to do outreach, I used to tell ladies like, look, you can put in your condom before the date. That way, when it's time, when them clothes come off, there's no feeling with the condom. Like it's already in, you're ready to go.
Mm.
Um, and it also, because of the way the female condom is made, like there's a ring that kind of sits on the outside of the vagina, so it's giving a little bit more of that skin to skin protection, just a little bit. So it's protecting inside completely, and then it's giving just a little bit on the outside. Um, Female condoms are kind of clumsy though. Like it's more of a process. So I would always tell people use a female condom with somebody you can laugh with because it's a little awkward at first, but then it's great because again it gets warm. You the guy doesn't have to worry about looking for finding a condom. Like she's set to go. And it can also, if you remove the ring, it can also be used for anal sex as well. So it's just options. But again, you can buy them in the stores, but they're definitely more pricey than latex condoms or male condoms.
Okay, but and magnums are straight though, right?
Let me talk about these magnums here.
Okay, let's talk about them.
I feel like I statement. This is the beliefs of Bianca Alexis and not
Mm.
reflective of the People's Podcast. I think I think Trojan did a disservice when in that branding. Like I get it, because then I would often hear, oh, I can only use a Magnum, or I can't fit those other ones. I can only use a Magnum. Life, so that's Trojan. Lifestyle came out with the King condom. That was
Yes.
their equivalent. That again, that gold wrapper, ooh, fancy. Um, but ask a few ladies, or ask a few folks. I'm not going to say ladies, people who are having receptive sex. Um, the few times when that Magnum was not the right fit and fell off in the midst of intercourse and you fishing around trying to get it out. It's not for everybody. And that's okay. It really is. You know, you see those demonstrations. I remember especially when I was like doing outreach like in the high schools and stuff, demonstrations where we would have folks who would put on a whole condom over their fist and roll it down, a regular size condom. And so you don't need a magnum. Like condoms are latex. They're meant to stretch and mold to you. Like you don't need. And condoms come in a variety of sizes and options. Now, granted, yes, if magnums are the only thing that work for you and the only thing that can fit your monstrous penis, then fine. Then fine. But I want you to be true to yourself. So if that means when the lights are on, you pull that magnum out for that gold effect, and then as soon as the light go off, you run and get the regular size and put that on, it is okay. Whatever you need to do, as long as there is a barrier, some protection. But yeah, I mean, it just sounds fun, right? It just sounds amazing. Okay. But that doesn't mean that it's not one size fits all. It's not built for everybody. That's okay.
That's okay. Okay, yes. All right. And I had another question about what can the parents do to help be more receptive to talking about sex with their children, so they won't have to sneak or just safe sex. What can the parents do?
I think that let them know that they can talk to you, right? So I used to talk to a lot of parents who would be like, "Oh, I don't need to bring home condoms. My kids are not having sex." How do you know? Like how do you know if you're not asking in a way that isn't awkward? If you are, create a safe space for them to. You can bring it up first and say, "Hey, just so you know, I am here whenever you are ready to have these conversations. Do you want to have this conversation right now? Is this the time?" It might not be at the dinner table Thanksgiving. Like that's that's not it. But I think it's important to set the tone with your kids that they can tell you things without fear. I think we don't tell. I think children, teens, whatever, don't tell their parents things because they're afraid. I know that was me, and that's why I remember I didn't tell my mother things at first. Although in hindsight, maybe I could have, but I was like, I don't know. But let me find. But I also knew I needed an adult. I didn't necessarily need my friends in high school. So I think also opening that door too, like telling your kids, if you do not feel comfortable talking to me, these are the folks in our family, in our community that are available for you to talk to, that I would encourage you to talk to, and then have conversations with those adults. Like, please, if my son is Noah, if Noah comes to you and wants to have a conversation with you about sex that he doesn't feel comfortable having with me, please give him honest and compassionate advice. Because you don't want those folks, those adults that you assume are safe to have conversation with, then telling your kids trash, right? Like you want to either, again, tell your kids that is a safe space, that nothing is and that nothing is off limits. Also, ask your young people what they know. Kids know a lot. Let me tell you something. They know a lot. Young Bianca. I knew things before I talked to my mother and my parents that I was hearing from my friends. And I was kind of like, let me go and confirm if this is correct. So one of the things I tell folks to do is ask your kids what they know. What do you know about sex? What are you hearing? And now there's so much exposure to all of the things, internet, TV, etc. What do you know? What are your friends telling you? What are you hearing at school? What questions do you have about what you're hearing? And then listen and and respond in a way that's compassionate. And if you don't know, there are so many resources and tools specifically for parents on how to have those conversations. There's I think they're on Instagram. I think it's called Sex Positive Family is the IG page, but they have a website that has a whole host of conversation starters, resources, guides, books about just an array of things. So again, we're not just talking about heterosexual sex or male female sex, like really having conversations with your kids about the fact that sex can take many forms. And so that way, if they once they get older, if they're like, I'm attracted this way and not this way, can I talk to my parents about this? And hopefully the answer is yes, because you've already opened the door and let them know that you are a safe space. Our children need, sorry, Black children need more safe space. They need it. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Speaking of safe space, okay, well, here's my safe space, because growing up in Naperville, this was the thing. It wasn't so much, it wasn't the LGBT or so much other stuff that was going on. It was the interracial situation. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, I don't know if you ever met my parents, but it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't. It wasn't the move. So that was, I mean, like, usually I'd imagine growing up in Naperville, man. My God, man, trying to have that conversation, even though I had it because I was just me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, this is what it is, and my parents is whatever. But
Yeah.
that has to be a safe place as well for children to be like, going to homecoming with this girl. This might be my situation, boom, boom, because you to sneak and do that, you might, you know what I'm saying? You still sneaking with another race. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah. Ooh, that's for another day, Joshua. But yeah. I think it's yeah. And I don't know, I don't know if we're having that conversation enough. And what does that look like? Um, mm, that's for another one.
It is for another one. I had to bring it up because when you were saying,
but again, being safe,
because because everybody's like, oh, I love unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if I'm telling you that my first situation with this situation is that situation, then how can I tell you? Because now you ask about the girl, then you find out who the girl is, and I'm out the house. All right, whatever. So, she loves you. You're very informative and hilarious. He just says, as soon as my daughters they went to checkups with me. Beautiful. And Asmesia wants to know, how can we discourage the notion that talking about sex increases interest or translates to actual sexual activity, and what does the data say?
So, I can't speak on the data, but I think that is definitely something that I can kind of go back and look at. I'm fascinated by that, and I am, because I know that, and I've been talking about my mother a lot, so hopefully she's not watching this, but I remember my mother saying to me, I don't know if I want to give you birth control because I don't want to be giving you permission to have sex. Well, nobody's gonna give me permission. Either am I not. Whether with, so either I'm doing it with protection or not. So that's one thing. And also, if we think about it, like, I remember in 5th grade going through DARE and learning about all of the drugs, but it didn't make me want to do drugs.
That's a good point.
So I think or some folks who never even heard of the DARE program and they're using drugs. So I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can always lean on that. I want people to be informed. That way they can make informed decisions about their body and what they are hoping. And again, I talk a lot. I even talk a lot with the kids about consent. I tell my children, you don't have to hug anybody if you don't want to. You don't have to. I'll never forget. It was Thanksgiving, and we're a big family. This was a few years ago, and we're huggers, and we're loud, and we're Jamaican, all those things. And I remember, and my daughter is not, she's not a hugger. My son is. And I remember when we pulled up at my cousin's house, I said to my kids, I said, okay, inside there's a lot of family, and they're going to be excited to see you, and they may want to hug you. You don't have to hug. You can say no, thank you, and that's it. Starting early, reminding children and adults that they have choice is so huge. What you choose to do or not to do with your body, and hugging is one of them. My son is a hugger, and I used to tell him, no, you cannot run up to everybody and hug them. You have to ask, because some people are like, no, I don't want you to hug me. So I don't think having conversations about sex is going to make I don't think it's going to make kids want to have sex. And if it does, at least they are doing so with knowledge about how to protect themselves, and also how to enjoy it. There's this guy in Atlanta that I was actually just doing an interview with yesterday, and one of the things he says is he's tired of hearing about sex as disease and disaster. And that is real. Sex is not just disease and disaster. It is joy and pleasure and pain if you want it. It's all of the. We're not yucking young.
That's right. That's right. Listen, I saw your homecoming picture. Your homecoming picture. I saw your homecoming picture. You know what I'm saying? Now you can tell me. You know what I'm saying?
Did you dig that up though? That was a fun time. Anyway, but it's not. But it really is about learning about ourselves, and what we like and what we enjoy and what we don't, and how to do things in a way that keeps us and our partner or partners safe, and what does that look like? Like, it shouldn't be, it's long gone are the days of those sex ed classes where they show you herpes all over the genitals that look like cauliflower.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah, exactly. That's scared straight. Oh, I'm never gonna do that. Nah, you're still gonna do that. You're just not gonna do it with somebody whose vagina looks like cauliflower. But but again, you can't. It's also we continue to forget that a lot of STDs they don't have symptoms. Some folks can have STDs and not have some of those outward symptoms, or just miss it. And so that's why the testing is important. I remember in my first apartment, I used to have an STD chart on the back of my bathroom door, and I also had a bowl of condoms in the living room because I know people.
Okay.
But I used to have this STD chart in the bathroom, because it was like, well, what best place than in the bathroom when you're like, oh, let me look and see, is that a bump? Does that not look quite right? Is that discharge? Is that itching? Like, being able to know signs and symptoms and what to look out for. But again, understanding that sometimes things do not appear for a while. So yeah, being safe, getting tested regularly.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm happy that we're having this conversation. And I got 2 more questions for you, but I want to read some of the comments, because I wanted to stress that it's just, I'm very fascinated I'm a practical person, right? So like spirituality, religion, everything I deal with numbers. I don't believe in a whole bunch of stuff that is out for my, outside of my reach.
Yeah.
And in my religious friends, the parenting method or the effects of it, the people who were like the strictest and the spookiest, like who had the wildest kids. The people who never talked about sex had all the pregnancy came. They was going the most. So I used to look at them and I used to be like, because my mom's, they used to be like, oh, she gonna talk about sex and she gonna say this and that. But I was like, okay, so they thought I was the baddest. But I'm like, the ones who never talked about it, those were who I was doing. Like, that's who I was. They were telling me stuff. I used to be like, yo, she's wild. Like, what is going on? So this notion of not talking about sex, I'm like, you can, and you can not all you want to. That don't mean it. Just I think it makes the parents, sometimes makes the parents feel better that they're not doing it. But if you think that by you not saying nothing, you're sadly mistaken. Period.
And also sometimes I think also not normalizing it or not having conversations about it, I think is it could be what make young people want to do it more because they're like, what is this thing that I'm never supposed to do until I'm married? Um, Let me go try that because everybody's doing it, and then it's just you just opening up a box instead of having some truthful conversations.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to read some of the comments and thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, my sister Mimi says, um, I think self-awareness is so key. If parents can't have an open and honest conversation with their children, they definitely need to point to an adult in the community or a professional that can help them. The hug conversation is key. She tells her son that all the time. As Mija says, people need to understand and be empowered with truth. We have an obligation to do that for the youth. They will surprise us with great choices when they are empowered with facts.
Mm-hmm.
The discussion should start earlier and progress with age, germs, affection, body safety rules, etc., and continue from there. Some teens and youth, then Mimi saying some teens and youth are clearly going to do it, especially in these religious communities. Lots of nation babies with babies and church kids with strollers on the front row on Sundays. More than abstinence and scare tactics need to be taught at home. It's the parents' responsibility, absolutely. So Khadija Davis said, I'm glad that she's addressing STDs. The emotional attachment with individuals can be the worst disease ever, real talk. And as me just talking about your energy, Bianca has great energy. Boom. Amazing. Okay, so
That's why I'm the honorary co-host. Go ahead.
so I want to thank everybody for watching and dealing with this. I want to put it on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. And I just want to the main things that are very taboo to me,
Mm-hmm.
or taboo, not taboo to me, but taboo in the community, that Black community, but especially religious communities, STDs, never talked about it, very real. LGBT community, very real. I'm going to address it, whatever, fine. It's in every religion. I see, especially with the young people right now, is going crazy. And just STD, like the STD thing, that's why I'm doing this, because I'm like, nobody's even going to say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Act like it doesn't happen. So anything that you can, anytime you can give us some information, let's address it. I'm trying to prevent it, and I want people to, if you get it, what's the rules, and let's not bury it, because that's an strong families equal strong nation and a strong community, and STDs is right up in there. And I'm just telling y'all, it's a real thing. Believe it or not, in every city, I don't care how big or small, every city, trust me, I'm talking to people who dealing with it, and it's a reality. So I want to thank Bianca for coming on and giving us some information and some inspiration about it, so that we could go back and let's do some things. And I'm so happy I don't have children right now.
It changes things.
I don't know how y'all do it. I'm looking at my nephew like, oh my god, because maybe like my sister's like, I'm like, how are they going to raise children?
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, man, I salute y'all. I salute all the parents out there, because it's trying to get them through. It's woo.
And I think too, like we want to have these conversations. We want these topics to start at home. Yes. Um, but I really I can't stress enough for parents that if you do not feel for whatever reason comfortable or capable to have these conversations with your children, find somebody that can, because it has to happen. And I think that's part of the reason why I believe that sex ed should be taught in schools, because there are a lot of kids who are not getting these conversations at home and really need them. So if you can't, for whatever reason, and that's okay. Some folks can't talk about sex because of their own sexual trauma. That is real. That's a whole nother issue. So find someone to be able to kind of to step in and support you and your family. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. As Mija says, thank you both for having such a conversation. Real conversation. Naima says, thank you, Josh, for normalizing this important topic. Love the People's Podcast. Thank you, Bianca, for this great information. Okay, one quick story before we go. This is how much my mom was extreme about sex education. Like, this is the realest story ever. Like, I was telling somebody the other day. Girl comes to the house, clearly older than me. Like, she was like older, but I was on it. You know me, boom, boom. And my mom, like, you cannot make this up. I tell her, we're gonna meet at this time. We go down to the basement. I got the music going. like I'm thinking like I'm smooth. It's like 2 a.m. Like I swear, you cannot make this up. Like the mother off the Goldbergs, like the mother off so many shows. That 70 show. My mom's was just on it. Came flying down the stairs like, Joshua, what's up? Like, what's going on? What we doing? We watching TV down here? I'm like, Mama, get upstairs. Like, get out of here. She was just extra. And she was always like talking like, oh, you like her? And she's like, she's like, I'm like, Mama, you're ruining everything. You're killing my spirit. But because of that, you know what I'm saying? Because of her protective security, she was like, you want to talk about it? Like why? Like, what are these feelings that you feel? And I was like, thank you, Mama, because now you ruined it. And I never talked to that girl. I never talked to that girl anymore. Now, every time I think about her, I think about my mom's catching us. And it's just like, you know, it's a whole thing. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be involved, because if she would have turned a blind eye,
yes,
acted like, oh, my son is so perfect, and something would have went, it would have been another situation. And because
yes.
that girl was mine, she definitely got pregnant. So it is what it is. So I just telling y'all.
And here you are with no kids. So
yeah, exactly. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Y'all learn how to. Yeah.
Intervention.
But thank you.
Absolutely.
Shout out to North, you know, the Huskies. Shout out to all the great work that you're doing right now. How can we support you in any of your businesses and on, you know, and your platforms?
Yeah, so my business is All Things Be Alexis on Instagram and Facebook. I do try to make a point there to bring awareness as well, not just, you know, the items and things that I make and sell, but also awareness about sexual health, about mental health. So All Things Be Alexis. Also, I think the biggest way to support is to continue to have these conversations. You can go on CDC's website and find out where you can get tested in your area, where you can get PrEP. If you think PrEP makes sense for you and your life, it's accessible. And so, and just educate ourselves. The resources and tools about having conversations with your kids, there's so many out there, to be able to just, we want our children to be able to come and talk to us and bring their authentic selves. That changes the trajectory on so many things. So yeah.
Okay,
pick up a book or a pamphlet.
One last question: if you're married,
Mm-hmm.
right, or they have that what's it like if you're staying with somebody for 7 years,
Common law
marriage, or you've been married, whatever common law, whatever situation is, do you still need to get tested?
Yes. Yes.
Together?
I think
together?
that's up to you. I've been married almost 11 years now. My doctor, my primary care, she runs tests. She don't even ask me anymore. She's just like, oh, I'm doing these things because we're Black. So, you know, and that's just, you know, part of that wellness exam. So that's the other thing too, is who are your providers? Like Black folks in health, that's a whole nother podcast. But are you talking to your provider about what you are and are not doing sexually? And so is your provider offering you an HIV test, an STD test? Like they, as part of your routine physical, they really should. They really should. My provider knows me. She's also my husband's provider. But when I get my annual physical, trust and believe, she checks all the boxes, and I appreciate that. So I think even if folks are, yeah, I think everyone should test. I don't know if there's reason not to. And so, and if anybody else, either of those people, if their tests come back positive, then that's another conversation to have safely, hopefully. So yeah, I think routine testing is key.
Excellent. Well, I'm definitely gonna take the stigma of it. I've done it. You know what I'm saying? I had to I tell all the brothers and the homies around me. I said, hey, listen.
Yes.
Go get it. Let's stay on top of it. Let's stay diligent. Regardless, I don't know what you're doing. I say, well, let's just do it just to make sure, see what the next conversation we need to have. So I appreciate that.
And it's so easy now and quick. Once upon a time, it used to take 2 weeks to get HIV tests back. I'll never forget my first HIV test, and that 2 weeks, I was like, yo, like it felt like forever. Now you're getting results in less than 20 minutes, which is hard sometimes on the testing side as a tester, because like, man, I don't have enough time to really necessarily process how I'm going to tell this person this information, but they're going to leave here today knowing, as opposed to those 2 weeks sitting at home and sitting and worrying and thinking. Like, so that, I think that also kind of scares people in testing because it's like, oh, those results are so quick. I don't know if I can handle that right now. And I would ask people before we test, like, are you ready to handle whatever these results are? And that changes things too. But testing is easy. It's out there. It's free in a lot of places. So yeah, let's access it. Let's encourage folks to do so. Take a friend. I mean, we don't win COVID lists and stuff. Let's all, group date. We all just go get a little finger prick. It's okay.
But that's how it is. It's a finger prick.
Yes. So now mostly it's fingerprint. It used to be in some organizations still do the oral swab, which is also just as effective.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing testing back in the day, it was the oral quick and you get your results in 20 minutes. So whether it's the oral swab or the finger prick where they take just a little bit of blood, either way, it's quick. Most of the times it is free, especially if you're going through a community-based organization. Yeah, and it's accessible. So there isn't a whole lot of reason not to. I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's almost too easy, and maybe that's why folks are not doing it.
Well, listen, yeah. I'm all about health, mental health advocacy, STD every. Listen, let's all be health as well. I'm supporting. Thank you. Yeah. I got some. I'm gonna reach out to you very soon because I got some more stuff I need your assistance with. And
I got you. Bring me back, Josh. I'm
here. Good deal. All right, and thank you, y'all for watching. All right, have a good day.
Bye.